It's Kevin Borba. It's Zach McKinnell on Locked On Buffs. We're talking about Colorado's FCS transfer portal finds. Zach, I mean, I think Colorado did a great job finding these hidden gems, right? I'm not going to say they discovered these guys, but I do think they beat out some pretty big programs, and I do think they beat the rush on some of these guys. One of them being Sincere Brown, one of them being Deion Parks. Of those two, which one's your favorite find for Colorado? We're going to detail each one, but which one's your favorite find for the Buffs?
Probably Sincere Brown. I think he has the ability to be 1,000-yard wide receiver next year. Like that's how good he is, because he produced last year with subpar quarterback play at Campbell.
Yeah.
He really didn't have a whole lot of talent around him, and he was just finding ways to make plays. And I mean, into the season with over 1,000 yards, 12 touchdowns, had just some massive performances, man. That Delaware State film is just unbelievable. And I always kind of look at when guys transfer up, how do they do against FBS competition? He had 5 catches for 126 and a touchdown against Liberty. And Campbell went and played week 1. So he can produce against top level talent. I just don't think you find guys who are built like him. 6'4", 6'5", almost 200 pounds, can run, has the ability to take any pass to the house if he makes a guy miss. And I think the thing that Colorado is going to love about him is not only can you use him as a deep threat, I don't know if that's necessarily his game, though. I think that what they're going to use him on is that mid-range game, that 10 to 20, maybe even 8 to 20-yard range over the middle. He's really, really good catching footballs over the middle, making guys miss, and getting some yards after catch. That's where he's going to live, and he's just a massive red zone target too. Being 6'5", he's got some leaping ability. I think this was one of the more underrated additions for Colorado, and I'd be very surprised if he doesn't emerge as maybe one of the top 1-2 wide receivers on the team.
Yeah, I mean, Colorado replaced one of the best wide receiver rooms in college football. 3 guys drafted. Will Shepherd is probably going to get a chance as a UDFA eventually. We'll just call it 4 NFL receivers are gone, right? So you need a bunch of people to step up. And Sincere Brown was an interesting addition to me because I look at this wide receiver room, and while I see a lot of young potential, I don't see a guy who's like a definitive alpha. I see like Joseph Williams from Tulsa has that potential, right? But he's a sophomore, right? He was the American Freshman of the Year, or whatever, Rookie of the Year, whatever they want to call it. And now you bring in Sincere Brown, who he's on the older side, but he has 1 year of production compared to Joseph. Like, they both have 1 year production. And then they have Draylon Miller, Amarion Miller. What do you think Sincere Brown needs to do to sort of step up as that number 1 guy? Like you said, he could be that guy, but what should he do to assume that role, if you will?
The one thing is, and the one thing he did struggle with late in the seasons, and maybe it was fatigue, maybe it was just the talent around him, but there were some drops toward the end of the year that really hurt him. And obviously we know Prime isn't going to go for the drops. And so that's one thing I think he does have to clean up. It's not like a massive issue that's going to impact him. It just came late in the season. I think things started spiraling out of control for Campbell. It wasn't a very good team, and I just think that kind of got to him. But I'll say this: I also want to see him improve on the deep ball. There were a few times where he was able to be a deep threat, get behind the defense. But if he can, on top of that, keep his mid-range game together and is underneath, because a lot of times with Campbell, they were not a very good offense, Kevin, so they weren't able to set up a lot of deep passes. So maybe that was it, right? They had to run a lot of underneath, a lot of screens, drags, something over the middle, and he was their best playmaker. Like, everyone knew the ball was going to him. And I think at Colorado, he's going to be surrounded by more talent to unlock that. So maybe these issues that we're talking about to improve on are things that are going to be fixed by just being surrounded by better teams, being in a better offense. But I think Brown right now, like you said, there's so much inexperience. Colorado had the most players, wide receivers drafted in the NFL draft. They needed a guy like Sincere Brown that can come in right now and be a day 1 starter. And that's what they got.
Yeah, I'm pretty excited about this new wide receiver core because we're going to really see, 1, the evaluation abilities of Colorado, and 2, the development abilities of Colorado, because it's like, okay, you now don't have, because I think people forget this, but they got Jimmy Horn after he was proven. The year before, 2023, they got Xavier Weaver as USF's all-time leading receiver. Travis Hunter has always been that guy. Will Shepherd comes in as a guy who produced at the SEC level, and LeJontay Wester had 100 catches at FAU. All of these Colorado guys are freshmen, sophomores with some experience, not too much. So Sincere Brown has, I think, a clear path to being that wide receiver 1, but Colorado has a big development period ahead of them. Let's talk about the other FCS find that Colorado had that I think is probably one of the better defensive finds in Deion Parks, the corner out of Illinois State. I'll give Colorado fans a little background, right? You lose Travis Hunter, Yes, we're talking about him again. He played 2 positions. I don't know if you guys knew this, but he played 2 positions really well. And so you're replacing him. You lose Colton Hood to the transfer portal. And so you bring in Tion Parks. And I think he went from depth piece to possible starter. What do you see in Tion?
Yeah, I still think he can compete for a starting spot. He's a little less proven though than what Sincere was. Sincere was the star of
Mhm.
that Campbell team. When you look at Tion, he didn't start till I believe week 7 or 8 for
Wow.
Illinois State. He
Mhm.
kind of, it was what his sophomore year last year, if I'm not mistaken. Kind of coming into his own, and I think he had a big year last year, and he took a massive step forward as a defensive back. But we know that the step up in competition is a big adjustment period. But he did play over 700 snaps last year because even when he wasn't starting, he was still averaging 30 to 40, sometimes 60 snaps per game, even as a rotational guy. Had a really, really high coverage grade last year. And I thought he played really well as a starter. There were some growing pains, though. He got picked on against some elite competition in that playoff game against UC Davis, who very, very creative with their offense. But you look at what he did, he had 9 pass breakups or 11 pass breakups, only 1 pick, only allowed 3 touchdowns, only allowed 17 receptions on 45 targets, less than 175 yards allowed against him as the primary defender. We'd love to see it. I think he's going to be a guy that can step in, compete for playing time at the corner role. And I'll be interested to see. There was some times where he played a lot of his snaps at corner, but there were times where Illinois State would rotate him to free safety, put him in the box as kind of like a nickel, downhill linebacker type safety. I'll be curious to see how versatile Colorado plans to use him, but I think he will be a guy you could stick at corner and trust because he has that experience, especially from last year.
I think working with a guy, Deion Sanders. I don't know if people have heard of him. He was pretty good corner back in the day. I think he was decent, right? But yeah, I think he'll have a lot of developmental opportunities in Boulder. Before you go, Zach, tell me, of the 3 players, which one do you think has the best opportunity to be a star for Colorado in 2025?
I still think it's Sincere Brown. I
Okay.
really do like Kalen Taylor, and I think he'll probably make he's just so versatile. You'll probably see a lot of him with the special teams role, but Sincere has the possibility to be like an all Big 12 type of season, where he could be one of the top receivers in the conference, potentially in the country. I really do think he was slept on at the FCS level just because he was on such a bad Campbell team last year. With the upgraded talent around him, with better quarterback play, I really think Sincere Brown is a budding star and potentially could work himself into NFL draft conversations going to Colorado. So I'm not always for FCS guys transferring up because there's some guys who just go up chasing the bag, get put as a backup and sit the bench, and there goes their NFL dreams. Sincere Brown's a guy who's going to transfer up and probably make a lot of money at the next level with his size and athleticism.
Awesome. Well, you guys probably loved what Zach had to say. Zach, I loved what you had to say. So if you want more of it, Zach, where can they find you?
Yeah, you can find me on the Blue Bloods on all podcast streaming platforms and YouTube, FCS Football Central on si.com/college/FCS, man.
Awesome. Well, thank you for joining us. When we come back, we're going to be talking about Colorado's Auburn transfer edition with another Zach Blackerby of Locked on Auburn. Welcome back to Locked